and for this reason, the PGFTU has actually called for the boycott of the history group. Closely linked to business unionism is the third major challenge, which is that many of our unions are not member-driven. Building the BDS movement inside the trade unions necessarily entails challenging these tendencies, practices, and structures that centralize control in the hands of top leaders and staff and take power out of the hands of members. Not surprisingly, many of the most vocal opponents to boycott, divestment, and sanctions have been unions that are US-based, that have little to no member involvement in any decision-making of the union. There was, in 2007, an anti-boycott, divestment, sanctions letter issued by leaders of a number of US unions, including the AFL-CIO, and many of them have Canadian sections, and they've included unions such as the United Food and Commercial Workers and Unite Here, which are notorious for having little to no member involvement at any level that's anything more than symbolic. Fighting for spaces for rank-and-file members to organize is so critical to the fight, to our fight to build the anti-apartheid movement in our union. The leadership are not generally going to be taking the lead on this, and so the campaign needs to be built from below through committees and small groups of members active in their locals and their councils. In Canada, we currently face the challenge of a Labour Central that is pushing for increasing control over international solidarity work. I'm not sure if that's happening here as well. Our Labour Central, the Canadian Labour Congress, has played a key role in undermining our work through various backroom maneuvers to delegitimize the call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions, to try to present an image of cooperation between the History Group and PGFTU by pushing for joint projects between Israeli and Palestinian unions to try and show that not all Palestinians are behind boycott, divestment, and sanctions. They've been very active in this for the past couple years since our call. They did the same kind of thing in the 80s in response to the coalition of trade unionists who were building the anti-apartheid movement and the trade unions. As a result of this struggle, these activists against these kind of retrograde positions and maneuvers on the part of the Canadian Labour Congress on various international issues, including South Africa, were able to get their unions to set up individual international solidarity committees so that they could do their own worker-to-worker campaign within their own unions. I'm not sure how things are structured here. Most unions have their own international committees? Some do. Okay. No. Okay. So this is, I think, one of the fights too, is if we have them to retain them, because they're trying, at least in Canada, they're trying to re-centralize all that work, so that because we're, going after because of the BDS call. And it's not just, they're not just taking these kind of retrograde positions on Palestine, it's also on different issues in the Philippines, in Iran, etc. And the CLC has been working hard to reverse all the gains that we've made to have actual rank-and-file control over international solidarity work. And so this is part of our current fight, is to fight this re-centralization back into the CLC. One of the things, one of the ways that we see this is actually there's the CLC and the International the new ICFTU, the International ITUC. The new ICFTU is basically, and the International Transport Workers Federation, the ITF, have been pushing for a joint project in Canada between an Israeli Transport Workers Union and Palestinian Transport Workers Union. And what this project is basically a call-in kind of thing where Palestinian truck drivers trying to get through checkpoints can actually call up the history group and help. And the history group apparently, because they have, this is just shows how embedded the history group is with the Israeli state. They'll make some calls to kind of speed them through. This is supposed to be, and unions, the Canadian Auto Workers, and they've approached our union at the national level to try to be a part of this. You can look it up online. It's pretty appalling stuff. So this is the kind of stuff that's happening in the back rooms where the bureaucrats from the Labour Central are bringing in folks from the history group and making kind of deals with the leaders to undermine the work that the rank and file are doing, that we're trying to do in this coalition. So I don't know if that's happening here too, if the ITF is trying to push something similar here, but I'd love to hear it if it is true. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That's good. We get conversation around it. Pardon?
We have MPs involved in something similar.
Right. Uh-oh. Yeah. So these are things. Yeah, so these are things that are really important for us to fight. Sometimes hard to find out about because the way that they do things, they never tell members about any of the stuff that they're doing. We end up having to find out about it, on some press release somewhere online. Anyways, I'm gonna go on. So in terms of the History, Salim already mentioned it, and most of you know the history of the History as basically. As playing a key role in the colonization of Palestine as a kind of pre-state formed nation that bought land, built factories, provided capital for infrastructure to provide jobs for Jewish settlers only. And it was founded on a rejection of the possibility of Jewish-Palestinian Union Federation, and actively and basically crushed any attempts by both Jewish workers and Palestinian workers in the 20s and 30s to actually have an anti-racist union federation. As the ITF project revealed, I think, and also, their silence and the silence of the majority of Israeli unions on the current crisis, on the crisis of the bombings in 2006, etc., I think shows the embeddedness of the continued embeddedness of the History with the Israeli state. They're really, and that's why the PGFT calls for a boycott of the History. So this is one of our major challenges.